By the morning of the 19th of December 1944, Kampfgruppe Peiper of the 1st SS Panzer Division had reached Stoumont, and the armoured Kampfgruppe attempted to penetrate even further. The breakthroughs of Kampfgruppe Peiper and other German units in the Ardennes was worrying, and the Americans quickly sent up several armoured units to stem the advance. Combat Command B of the 3rd Armoured Division was quickly sent to the area north of Stoumont and La Gleize, threatening Kampfgruppe Peiper's northern flank. The main components of Combat Command B were the 1st Battalion 33rd Armoured Regiment of Major Kenneth McGeorge, the 2nd Battalion of the 33rd Armoured Regiment of Lieutenant Colonel William Lovelady, and the 2nd Battalion of the 36th Armoured Infantry Regiment. Also, the HQ of the 33rd Armoured Regiment of Colonel John Welborn was a part of the combat command. Several smaller groups were created, each having its own task to eliminate a threat posed by Kampfgruppe Peiper. Lieutenant Colonel Lovelady was given his own task force bearing his name. It consisted of his 2nd Battalion 33rd Armoured Regiment with the addition of E Company 36th Armoured Infantry Regiment. He had 5 Sherman 105s, 12 M5 Stuart light tanks and 34 regular M4 Shermans. These are the numbers at full strength. It is important to note that several tanks were still under repair. Task Force Lovelady was sent to Roanne, just northeast of La Gleize. With Peiper having lost Stavelot on the 19th of December 1944, he only had one single supply route, the road running from the Petit Spey Bridge through Caen and thence on to La Gleize. Task Force Lovelady was about to cut this supply route and encircle Peiper for good. On the 20th of December 1944, Lovelady moved off at 8:45 am with E Company 33rd Armoured Regiment, armed with Sherman tanks in the lead. The first objective was the crossroads with the road to Roanne and the N33, just off of the Roanne Core railway station. The descent towards the crossroads was slow and thick fog engulfed the immediate vicinity. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Roanne had been reached, and the road towards the objective was wide open. Shortly afterwards, the 1st Platoon Reconnaissance Company spotted several German vehicles on the N33 heading northwards towards La Gleize. A German column of the 2nd Battery SS Panzer Artillerie Regiment 1 was completely taken by surprise. The Americans opened fire and the German artillerymen had nowhere to go. The 2 10.5 cm howitzers as well as a truck were knocked out. It was a matter of wrong place, wrong time for the column. The few howitzers that were leading the column were fortunate to escape the ambush. Having knocked out the German artillery convoy, the men of Task Force Lovelady set up a roadblock securing their objective. New orders were quickly distributed, which required the task force to continue the advance and head towards Stavelot. E Company 33rd Armoured Regiment continued the advance, and just after Caen they ran head-to-head with another German supply and artillery column. The time was 2:20 p.m. when the Sherman tanks ran into the column of the 1st Battalion SS Panzer Artillerie Regiment 1. It consisted of one Hummel 15 cm self-propelled howitzer, one towed 15 cm howitzer, 2 more 10.5 cm howitzers, 3 half-tracks and a handful of other vehicles. Just like their fellow comrades of the 2nd Battery, an hour earlier the column was completely taken by surprise. The 117th Infantry Regiment of the American 30th Infantry Division later reported to have captured 12 men of the 1st Battalion SS Panzer Artillery Regiment 1. The battalion was commanded by SS Hauptsturmführer Ludwig Kalischko. The 2nd Battery's commander, SS Untersturmführer Paul Stocker, was reported as missing in action, but it is likely that he was captured a day before the ambush. By eliminating the 2nd column, the road was temporarily blocked. It is believed that several Germans at the back of the column managed to retreat to the south towards the bridge at Petit Spey. Several others went into hiding, with some soldiers not being found for 16 days, although that was an exceptional case. In their frenzy to reach Peiper at La Gleize, the 1st Battalion SS Panzer Artillery Regiment 1 had almost entirely been wiped out. Task Force Lovelady also encountered one of the dreaded Tiger II tanks. King Tiger 332 had been abandoned by its crew at Caen on the 18th of December 1944 as it had run out of fuel. Protected by 3 young SS soldiers, the leading Shermans of Task Force Lovelady sent out an incendiary shell to deal with the 70-ton Panzer. The shell hit a house, setting it on fire. The 3 young guards promptly surrendered, and the Tiger II 332 fell into American hands. The operational Tiger was sent back to the States. Eventually only 3 guns of the 1st battery arrived at La Gleize and a part of the 3rd battery was left behind at 1. The 2nd battery had suffered the most from Task Force Lovelady's sharp but deadly action. After the road had been cleared, the platoon of Lieutenant Hope, which was acting as the spearhead of Task Force Lovelady, continued the advance towards Trois Ponts. By that time the Germans were well aware of the American presence along the Amblève River. The gunfire had echoed down the valley and had alerted the Germans defending the bridge at Petit Spey. Also, the few survivors of the 2nd column informed the Petit Spey defenders of what was going on. The initial American surprise was over, and now the Germans were hastily turning their guns towards the railway viaduct. The Petit Spey bridge was defended by 3 howitzers of the 5th Battery SS Panzer Artillery Regiment 1. One of the 3 howitzers initially facing towards Stavelot had already managed to turn in the direction of E Company 33rd Armoured Regiment. The SS Panzeraufklärungsabteilung 1 had also set up an anti-tank gun facing west. The 5th Battery was by then commanded by SS Hauptscharführer Auge. It was normally commanded by SS Obersturmführer Fritz Buczek, but Buczek had been able to follow Peiper's spearhead and he was put in command of the artillery within the pocket with Peiper. The Germans came up with the classic trick of eliminating the first and last tank of the column so that the remaining tanks would be trapped. Just before 4 PM, the 4 tanks of Lieutenant Hope's platoon, E Company 33rd Armoured Regiment, came around the bend at Trois Ponts. The anti-tank gun of the Aufklärer opened fire and immediately knocked out the leading Sherman tank. The howitzers down at Petit Spey faced initial trouble as the firing device developed problems. The remaining 3 Sherman tanks by then opened fire on the anti-tank gun at the bridge, instantly killing the crew. The Sherman tanks of Lieutenant Hope then spotted the vehicle park of Kampfgruppe Knittel with several trucks and half-tracks. These too quickly went up in flames. The initial howitzer still failed to fire and was subsequently shot by one of the Sherman tanks. By that time, however, SS Hauptscharführer Auge had returned from 1 with a recently repaired gun, which knocked out the 4th Sherman tank of the column, trapping the remaining 2. These remaining 2 Sherman tanks were destroyed by Panzerfaust teams. Other accounts mention that the Sherman tanks were destroyed by Tiger II 132 of SS Oberscharführer Brandt. But it seems as though Brandt and Otterbein, the initial commander of the tank, arrived too late and fired at already destroyed Sherman tanks, but still claiming the kills. Either way, not many American tankers came out of the engagement alive. Lieutenant Hope, leading the company, was killed in action. Hope went down the road with only a pistol when he was hit by a shell. With Lieutenant Stanko being wounded, Lieutenant Elliot was left in command of E Company. All further action was suspended and the leading elements of Task Force Lovelady pulled back towards the railway viaduct, from where they broke contact with the Germans. More roadblocks were set up. Although the day had left a bitter aftertaste for Task Force Lovelady, they did manage to encircle Kampfgruppe Peiper for good. The only remaining supply route had been cut and Lovelady had delivered a blow to Peiper's artillery. They had also managed to capture an operational Tiger II. With the new threat at the gates of Petit Spey, Trois Ponts and Stavelot, the Germans were forced to send more reinforcements up north in a desperate attempt to relieve the forward elements of Kampfgruppe Peiper, who were by then stuck at Stoumont, La Gleize and Cheneux. With the 30th Infantry Division to the north, the 82nd Airborne Division to the west and south, and elements of the 3rd Armoured Division to the east. The noose was tightened and it was up to the Americans to finish the job. This was the Ace Destroyer. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to catch you in another video. Cheers!